Jason Blevins covers the Sixers, 97.3 ESPN.com. His coverage of the Orlando bubble. Check that out as we get closer and closer. He was on the Zoom today with Brett Brown, who had some interesting things to say. We're going to get the lowdown right now as Jason Blevins joins us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. I know we're getting closer. This is starting to feel kind of real, right? I mean, that they're actually out there practicing. And I guess the biggest takeaway from today had to be Brett Brown's comments on the realization that they might use Ben Simmons in a new, different way.
Currently, you are starting point guard on this team. So expect to see Ben handle the ball in transition, but when they get into a half-court set, you're going to see Shake initiate plays, which allows Ben to play off ball, be a roller in the pick and roll. So that's huge news. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah, and I guess with that, I mean, Shake Milton is going to be the guy who's bringing the ball up and kind of running the offense. I mean, I think those were the two most evident things from today. You tweeted out about all the comments of people talking about Shake and the fact that they essentially started him in that role right from the beginning of practice today.
Yep, and Joel had glowing things to say. I've got to go through all of the transcripts with Joel. He's a little bit of a low talker, so it's a little harder to transcribe him, but he really praised both Ben and all of the things he can do. He started with defense. The two of them are a real 1-2 punch on defense, but then on offense, his versatility. And then he really praised Shake and confirmed Shake is the starting point guard.
This seems like a domino effect because now you have, it looks like, Al Horford to the bench, and then Tobias Harris will be in the 3 spot instead of playing the 4. And I know Tobias did spend time at the 3 this season, but when Al was on the bench for that short amount of time, he was back to the 4. So what is the domino effect now that you put Ben Simmons at the 4 position and Shake at the 1?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and what I'm interested to see is how they stagger these lineups because, throughout this season, they really kind of staggered Ben and Joel. So they would start together for 6 minutes. Joel would go to the bench. Ben would essentially play the first 10 minutes of the first quarter, and then he would go to the bench. Joel would come back in for the last 2 minutes / first 4 minutes. And then they kind of staggered right up until the last 6 minutes of a game where they were all on the floor. I could see that shifting now to where Tobias starts to be paired up with Al Horford, and they play the 4-5 when the other two go to the bench. So you may see less staggering with Ben and Joel, and you might start seeing positional groupings with Al and Tobias. And that is for me, from the first question I asked Al Horford when he joined was, Tobias was the number 1 rated initiator in the pick and roll in the NBA before he got here when he was with the Clippers. And Al is a great pick and roll guy, pick and pop guy. So was he excited to work with Tobias? And he said they really hadn't worked on it in practice. I wonder if that's changed because those guys can really be an interesting weapon tandem together that don't necessarily make sense in the context of Ben and Joel, but as a 2-man game, it could really be something interesting.
Jason Blevins covering the Sixers. So let's go to the Simmons-Milton, dynamic and kind of map out for us how you see that dynamic working. Does this mean that Simmons really doesn't have the ball in his hands all that much and they work him, down on the low block like a 1998 power forward? Like, what does Simmons' role now become in the half court?
Yeah, and I think that's the key distinction. I think you're not going to see much difference in the grab-and-go game. So if Simmons gets the defensive rebound, he's going to sprint. He's going to take it and go in transition. If they don't get a fast break opportunity and they have to walk it up the floor, you're going to see Shake. You're going to see Shake initiate, and they're going to try to do more pick and roll stuff with Ben, as opposed to hiding him in the dunker spot, which is something they tried to do early in the season with Jay Rich initiating plays, and it really didn't work very well. Also, Joel sort of operates in that general sphere where Ben would be in the dunker spot. I don't think you should expect that. I think you should expect is for him to be, at the elbow setting screens for Jay Rich and for Shake to open up the range of things like Joel maybe on a back screen, Joel on a pick and pop, or Ben on a pick and roll.
Will the nature of being closer to the hoop as he rolls to the basket, this is about Ben Simmons, of course, do you think that will lead to more trips to the charity stripe?
Yeah, the whole thing for me with Ben was two things around that is he has to want to go to the to the foul line because he can attack the rim. He's gotten stronger. I think you guys have probably seen the photos of his workouts in LA. He's gotten stronger, which lends itself more to that, finishing through contact, allowing himself to feel confident going to the free throw line, and then really getting more rhythm and flow with his lower body to have less sort of stilted mechanics at the free throw line. All of that, if it starts moving in a virtuous cycle, can really unlock, huge scoring potential from Ben Simmons. He goes from like a 17, 18 point per game guy to a 24 point per game guy if he, A, wants to go to the line, and 2, continues to sort of hit at the 70 to 75% rate at the line.
Yeah, I'm interested to get your take, Jason, on how do you see teams, and if this is going to be a problem for teams, defending Simmons. I mean, do you go with a power forward or a four, I guess? Power forward's kind of out of the league, I guess, at this point. But do you defend him with a forward? I guess you try to defend him with a guard. I mean, it seems if you try to put a stretch four on him, he's going to have a major athletic advantage down there. So what are the parameters of trying to defend him now?
Ask me when we know who the first round opponent is. I think it's a great question. It's just really there's a lot of different styles and variation in lateral foot speed amongst four men right now. You look at Robert Covington versus a Kevin Love. I guess Kevin Love's playing center now, but they're completely different types of players that are playing a stretch four. We call them a stretch four, but on the defensive end, they're completely different. So I think he's going to have either a size or a speed or a strength advantage against virtually any four-man. He's not going to have all three against all of them, but he'll have an advantage in one of those areas. And it's really, can he do enough to exploit the advantage that he's got?
Let me ask you then about, and that's a fair answer, by the way, about who the matchup is. And that kind of leads into this question, which is how seriously, might not be the fair word, but how seriously do they take these 8 games? What does Brett Brown kind of want to find out? Does he give these guys, are they playing 35 minutes, 38 minutes a night? Or is he kind of taking it slow with them and easing them into playoff action?
Yeah, he talked about that yesterday morning before practice. And it does not seem like seeding is very much on his mind. I think he's looking at the chaotic nature of how this is going to be, and they're focused entirely on getting their style of play right, getting themselves together as a team. I think they're much less worried about who they would face in a first-round matchup. You could argue, like, who do they want to face in the second round, and when do they want to see the Bucks? Do they want to see them in the conference finals versus the second round? That's probably the bigger question, but they're not focused on that right now. They are entirely focused on building their squad, rebuilding their sort of approach, and it sounds like they're making some pretty fundamental changes.
I'm so intrigued by what's happening because of this move. So I look at someone like Josh Richardson, and before there would be times where he had the ball in his hands, but now do we look at Josh Richardson as someone who's just a straight-up two guard who will shoot the rock when he gets it?
Yeah, I think so. I think the way I read this is think of him as a two guard. He's going to catch and shoot and attack closeouts and penetrate and dish, but it just feels like he's slotted into a much more traditional two-guard type role, very simplified role.
I want to go back to, you mentioned Simmons, and they've used him in the dunker spot. Now, they did that with Jimmy Butler last year in the playoff. They tried to kind of shoehorn him into that spot. Does this offense, do you think, look similar to that? Like, do they look at Shake Milton running the offense similar to the way they had Jimmy Butler running the offense?
I think they trust Shake to run the offense versus freelance more. Now, Shake probably isn't someone you say, go get us a bucket and bring us home.
Right.
Like you could try to hope for with Jimmy Butler, but Jimmy did a lot of freelancing. I was in Toronto. I covered them all throughout the playoffs, and he didn't really follow the script. And a lot of times there was other teammates offensively that didn't exactly know where he needed them to be. So I think what you're gonna see is Shake Milton, who executes what he's being asked to do, and what you don't have if you're the other team is 100 games or 82 games of film to sort of study. They've definitely shaken up the scheme, but I think it's an advantage for the Sixers to be predictable internally and know what each other are expected to do.
Now, when Brett Brown says today that they are working on like high-level new things, what do we pontificate that might mean?
How dare you say I pontificate? It's true. It is true. So, yeah, I think they're really, really interested in using Ben as a role man, which is something they've really only started doing in those last few weeks. And I think that's what it comes down to. I think they're going to change up those rotations a bit, but to me, adding in the pick and roll into this offense is really something they just haven't had. They did a lot of dribble handoffs when JJ Redick was there, which are a form of trying to get the same sort of forcing the defense into the same kind of decisions. But I think you're really just going to see more pick and roll in this offense, which Ben, quite frankly, just couldn't do as a point guard because he can't shoot. So you couldn't, the defense always had the easy decision, which was go under the screen. So it was never a worthwhile thing for them to have in the offense. So I think just expect that to be injected. And if people go under screens, I've watched Shake his entire professional career. He will not hesitate to pull it up and shoot if a guy goes under a screen. So I think it's just going to look a lot different from that standpoint.
Now, if I pontificated that because there's no fans in the building, we might see Ben Simmons just start cranking threes, would I be out of line?
Yes.
I was joking.
I don't think it has anything to do with the fans.
No, well, we've seen him in the summer in these videos. There's nobody there. He doesn't seem to have any problem. He does it in the pregame warm-ups. Maybe there's no fans there, and he says, I feel pretty comfortable.
I mean, I do believe he really works on it, but I've also been there sitting right next to him as he does those pregame warm-ups. I see how the ball comes out of his hand. I personally don't think it's part of his game yet. The rotation on the ball isn't where you'd want it to be to as a keep them honest kind of thing, maybe a corner three.
Yep.
You flash out to the corner, and if it's open, you take it just to keep the defense honest. But, if you're expecting him to turn into a guy that's pulling up from above the break, no, I wouldn't expect that at all.
Jay Blevins, NBA. Follow him on Twitter for all the Sixers Orlando bubble coverage. They will be starting their season on August 1st, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. It is Sixers-Pacers on Saturday, August the 1st. We'll have it here. Jay, appreciate it, man.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, man. He like all guests appear via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.